Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, longtime colleague, good friend, and that's not Charlie Cook. We need to change that. Rob
Hi, I'm Rob
Morse,
Morse.
of course. Rob is the gentleman behind. Why is this not changing?
Self-defense gun stories
Yep,
and the Slow Facts blog.
there we go. And bingo! Now the software picks it up.
Yeah, see? That wasn't that.
Speaking of juggling everything behind the scenes, sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't. Rob, we've got a lot of things that have happened in the past 24 hours.
Yes, indeed.
Let's start if we could. John Petrolino wrote an interesting article that came out on
Yes.
on bearing arms today. Well, let's talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, and you and I've met John. John is a what's marine engineer? Is that what that's called? Ship's engineer? He is not prone to highly emotional outbursts.
Not at all.
Listen to what he says about this. The New Jersey Policemen's Benevolent Association lobbied for restrictions on the rights of law-abiding citizens to carry handguns in public. The Policemen's Association also worked to have their members, both present and retired policemen, exempted from those restrictions. Why is that important in New Jersey? Unions provide votes for New Jersey Democrats. Too bad for the honest citizens who want to protect himself and his family. New Jersey politicians have elected to follow the often racist tradition of ignoring the U.S. Supreme Court, and they ruled out a workaround bill to squash lawful carry in the state. They outwardly noted that the proposed legislation is about affecting the law-abiding. One racist elitist lawmaker went out of his way to note that the people who live in areas that are mostly minority, in this case black and Latino, should basically not have their so-called increased access to firearms. So the Bruin decision, shouldn't apply to them. The bill, when it becomes law, will increase the fees in order to get a carry permit. It'll impose a permit to purchase and an FID card. Bring your cash. Only the wealthy should apply. The measure will also impose mandatory and, for now, non-existent insurance policies that have to be purchased. It creates a long list of where thou shalt not carry. That is if you're a peasant and not wearing blue.
Well, and he also brought up a interesting theory to me in the article. And that is this. Right now, if you are a New Jersey business owner and you want armed security, you've got one place to go to, and that's
Right.
a policeman. You have
Right.
to hire a policeman. They double dip. They get paid for doing
Right.
armed security, and they get paid for being a law enforcement officer. If the average Joe can carry, that opens up a whole lot more people that are eligible to be armed security. So
Yeah.
they may be voting with their pocketbook as well with their support.
But listen what they're saying. We'd rather that you civilians became victims rather than be able to defend yourself unless we get the cash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I wish I could. And now let's. Rank and file police generally are on our side. I'm talking the average officer on the street. This is not the average officer on the street that was focused on in this article.
This is the head of their union. But
Yes.
Paul, the average officer on the street has a mother, has a father, has a sister, a brother, a wife, a brother-in-law. They want them protected when they're not there. The strongest advocate I ever had to tell me, Rob, go carry, was a police officer who said, dude, what do you think I'm not Superman. I can't get there while it's happening. Yeah, the officers have it straightened out. Their union, not so much.
And the key word there is union. So yeah.
Sadly. Can we talk about the Bruin decision?
Yes, please.
Now, this what do I want to say? This report really says that water's wet. In a 64 to 35 split, Americans liked the Supreme Court's Bruin decision that recognized the right to keep and bear arms in public. A poll from Marquette University Law School found that Americans are well aware of the Bruin ruling. Only a quarter, about 28%, saying they hadn't heard anything about it. Their support for the court's decision, the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, protects the right to carry a gun outside the home, has only increased since the ruling was handed down. In June, 56% agreed with the ruling. By September, that rose to 57%, only 1%. By November, we're starting to pay attention to politics, the polls, elections. The results jumped up 7 points to 64% in support of Bruin.
I'm hoping by the time November 2 years from now rolls around that the numbers are up significantly again.
Yes, sir.
Because
well, Paul, thank God for this. I got to heap tons of praise on the Second Amendment Foundation and on what you're doing. This goes out on Facebook. People have a question, boom, we can hear it.
Yeah.
The more they did a poll of people in Oregon who voted for a constitutional amendment to limit the right to keep and bear arms. The more they asked them about it, the more people said, oh, if that's what it does, that's not what I want. So huge ad campaigns that frame the question in terms of gun control is good, that seems to be effective.
Yeah, and think about where the average person gets. You and I are a little bit different, but the average person gets what the information for about what they're going to vote on by watching TV and catching the 30-second ads. There are very few people that read newspapers anymore, but what do their friends think on Facebook? What is Twitter saying about it?
Do you remember what Andrew Breitbart said? He said, I started Breitbart News so that when politicians lie, I could say they're lying and they couldn't come back later and unring the bell. Mm-hmm. That's literally a quote. I heard him say it. So that's really important.
And
we're laying down the law. We're writing what is true and not letting it get swept up by the media spin.
I've said this many times on the air before, but I want to bring this up again. What a horrific loss we had when we lost Andrew Breitbart. He was he was literally a groundbreaker in media, and
right.
I have to wonder what if he wouldn't have passed? What if he would have continued doing what he was doing? I think
how would history have been different?
The landscape, the entire nation would be different, I think.
Well, but let's look at another groundbreaker, James O'Keefe. James said, I'm a journalist. Everybody with a cell phone in their pocket can be a journalist and record when politicians lie to us.
Yeah.
All it takes is the courage to do it.
It does. That's it. Well,
here we are burning time. We got. Whoops. Oh.
Let's go on to this NRA story about what Biden said.
Yeah. Biden called 9mm semi-automatic sales, that's just sick. And to quote, our president said the idea that we still allow semi-automatic weapons to be purchased is sick. It's just sick. It has no social redeeming value. Zero. None. Close quote. President Biden deliberately ignores the 1.7 million people who defended themselves with a firearm each year. Biden wants them disarmed. He wants them vulnerable. I think that's sick, but it's what I expect from a rich and corrupt elitist who's taken Bloomberg's money.
And who's being defended by a whole team of security that are carrying H&K full auto 9mm submachine guns.
Right. So, you know, I tell you what, Joe, I'll believe you when you disarm first. Show me.
Yeah, if 9mm is sick, if 9mm semi-auto is sick, it's got to mean that 9mm full auto is doubly sick. How about you disarm your protective detail? Because they are really sick.
Since President Joe also said we should outlaw assault weapons, let's go into the next thing here.
Yes, yes.
According to the heavily biased Gun Violence Archive, mass murders, and we're going to define that, that's 4 or more people that were killed, not including the shooter, in the same place. Those accounted for 113 deaths in 2020, 177 in 2021. The assault weapon of choice, the AR rifle, was used in about a quarter of those, 26%. Handguns were far more common. The common element, though, in all of these mass murders is that they're in disarmed victims in gun-free zones. Mass murderers also leave clues. They brag about what they're going to do. What isn't mentioned are the 100,000 times an honest gun owner used an AR in armed defense. We're going to talk about how common ARs are in just a second.
Yeah, well, we're starting to get comments flying in, so let me get a couple of these on the screen, Rob.
Sure.
Charlie Cook says Biden saying that 9mm is sick is really saying buy 38 special.
See, Charlie, I love your sense of humor. It's so much fun to be on the show with you, like last night. See, I think that people who say, 10-round magazine ban, they're just really telling me they're like, 45 ACP, when you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah. Well, I myself am thinking if you've only got one, you might want to go with 4570 government. In
case you have any velociraptors attacking in the front yard.
Yes. Or your attackers all line up in one line, 34 deep.
Right. Or you need to shoot them through several. Yeah, okay, we've got, gun shop wisdom. Here we go.
Michael over on the Facebook side says, what is sick, we pay for his security.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Michael. Yeah, we do.
So, and I want to. We touched on this a little bit last night when we did Polite Society podcast, but I want to go back to mass murderers and that almost without fail there are several warnings. These and I'm going to call them warnings. We call them clues in the story, but that there's a lot of people that know something is wrong with this person. And they are likely to do something extremely evil. And we talked about it. The one book that I've read that comes to mind every time I see a mass murder is Warnings Unheeded by Andy Brown. And in the case that book focused on, and in every other case that I've noticed since I've read that book, these people are broken, and a lot of people know that they are broken. And time after time after time, it's just not my responsibility to do something about it. Or somebody else is doing something about it. We're going to rely on that. And it never, ever, ever works.
There's a lawyer I love in Florida who said the mass murder in Broward County, this kid the police had been there, 36 times to his house?
Something like
that. Because we failed him. This kid clearly was a mess, and we let this distorted view leave him alone, and the kid needed help. We saw that at Uvalde. We saw that again in Colorado. We saw it in
the Michigan
Isla Vista. We saw it in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yes. Good grief.
In Michigan, the shooter, the parents had recently bought the handgun that was used, and I mean very recently.
Right, within days.
And the kid took it to school. The school had a meeting with the parents and the child because the child was misacting and acting badly in school the day of the shooting. All that had to happen was for the school to look at the kid's backpack, see the gun was in there, and no shooting.
The kid is writing notes to his teacher, make the voices stop. You know, I'm not the brightest guy, but I call that a clue.
Yes.
If some of our listeners are educators, would you let me know if your school has or doesn't, more importantly, doesn't have a protocol? If you see a message like that from a kid, is it very clear? It's already been spelled out what you're supposed to do? I'd love to know. You'd teach us a lot.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you're watching us live on either the Polite Society podcast feed, the actual page Polite Society Podcast on Facebook, or on the Polite Society Podcast YouTube channel, you can get your comments in just by commenting on the video. Otherwise, go to Twitter and tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. I want to take one side step here, Rob, and talk about the FASTER program and how much that can. It's quite. It originated in Ohio. It's got a lot of traction there. Finally, after the law was changed again to make it more common for teachers to be able to carry. It's in Colorado. It's in Arizona. I would love to see it in 47 other states.
It's in Oklahoma. It's in Indiana. Where else? Oof. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is a lot of private organizations have picked it up. Church security being chief among them. Private schools. Mm-hmm. We think schools, we often think public, but there are a lot of private organizations who've said, you know, this is our responsibility too. Bless them. I've met them. They have a warrior's heart. They are exactly the sort of person you want protecting your kids.
Yeah, I seem to be beating the same drum all the time when it comes to school shootings, but really having an armed person immediately able to respond is going to save more lives than anything else. The police are at the minimum a few minutes away.
Let's, through a wonderful accident, the organization that studies the incidents where school resource officers are involved happened to be in Ohio. Mm-hmm. So the NRA affiliate in Ohio said, dude, fix this. And the guys who studied schools and school safety said, it's a matter of time. We can't get there in time to stop it. The solution has to be inside the doors when the first shot is fired. We don't have this Department of Pre-Crime. We can't anticipate what's going to happen, but we need to respond quickly. Now, what's fascinating is that does a lot of things. Obviously, it brings the murder count down, and it tells mass murderers who are doing this, most of them don't expect to live. Many of them regret that they didn't shoot themselves after they're captured. They're doing this for notoriety. And if we stop them quickly,
they don't get a chance to get a high score.
Exactly. And the next guy goes, maybe I shouldn't do this. This doesn't work anymore.
And now here's the key to this. When it works and there's only one shot fired before a response, and there are no
Right.
more deaths, we need to publicize that. That needs to be screamed from the rooftops. This jerk failed. And we need to make sure that every time there's a victory, we shout from the rooftops, we have a victory here. One person tried, they failed. And enough times that goes out.
You remember the video, the stunning video in White Settlement, Texas. The FBI said that the defender, I forget Jack's last name, I think I've seen the guy in Texas, he reacted in seconds. There were, I believe, one person who was shot, maybe two with a shotgun, and then the murderer was taken down. There were 12, about a baker's dozen, of people moving toward the attacker.
And he got...
all of them were armed.
And he got one victim. Maybe, no.
I forget whether it was one or two. Yeah, at least one, right?
He did not get a whole congregation, which is what he was...
No, he did not. Right. The recent FBI data, as amended by Dr. John Lott, when attackers try and commit mass murder in places that are not gun-free zones, the honest, law-abiding, gun-carrying good guys stop them about half the time.
Charlie got the name for you, Jack Wilson.
Thank you, Charlie.
And gun websites says stopping killers sooner than they want also prevents the media from exploiting the events. Good.
Well said.
So let's see here. We're doing all right on time. Do we want to go ahead and talk about the Fourth Circuit?
I do. I have friends in that area. The Second Amendment Foundation and the Firearms Policy Coalition argued in the federal Fourth Circuit that Maryland's ban on modern semi-automatic rifles is unconstitutional. The Maryland law outlined 81 specific banned gun models, including AK-47s and even Uzi semi-automatic pistols. U.S. Circuit Judge Paul Niemeyer, a Ronald Reagan appointee, questioned whether all 81 banned weapons are in common use. Lawyers responded that all the banned guns are more or less the same thing. They're semi-automatic modern firearms, and they'd all be considered in common use. One statistic from the Firearms Industry Trade Association, that's NSSF, said the number of AR-15s and other similar rifles in circulation was more than 24 million. Maryland's Attorney General disputed this statistic, saying, yeah, but you're getting that from the firearms industry. How can they be trusted? What, you're going to call up a bunch of watermelon growers to find out about guns? They know what they sold. Who else are you going to ask? What's fascinating is that the National Firearms Survey asked 56,000 people if they owned AR-style firearms. The gun owners were asked, and look at how carefully this question is asked. Have you ever owned an AR-15 or similarly styled rifle? 32% of gun owners said yeah. I'm sorry, 30.2%. Mm-hmm. That's 24.6 million people. That's exactly what the NSSF estimated.
Almost like the NSSF knew what they were talking about.
Who would have thought? So the Attorney General, Robert Scott from Maryland, threw mud on a statistic he didn't like and ignored that it was, within 2%?
Anyway. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Your math in your head is a lot faster than mine is these days. So
that's what I did for years.
Yeah.
Can we jump to the Ninth Circuit, or did we have a comment on that?
Not yet.
Okay.
Nope. So yeah, let's go to California.
Yeah, we're being bicoastal here. Yeah. 18 to 20-year-olds have rights to. Out of all places, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco vacated and remanded a lower court decision on this long-running court case. This is where the Second Amendment Foundation and the NRA questioned the provisions in the gun control initiative passed back in November of 2018 that prohibits the sale of semi-automatic rifles to anyone under the age of 21 and also prevents sales of those rifles to residents from another state. This took place in Washington State.
Yep.
The case is called Mitchell v. Atkins. And wow, when the Ninth Circuit decides to obey the law, I'm kind of stunned. It's go, wait, what day is it?
Again, I believe this was a 3-judge panel, so the Ninth Circuit does have a chance to go en banc, but
a curated en banc, right?
Yeah, this is still good news, and it means at least 3 judges that are on the Ninth Circuit can read and have read the Bruen decision.
You have to really be willing to twist the facts to pretend that ordinary people do not have the right to keep and bear arms. The Bruen decision, unless a bunch of Democrats can pack the court quickly, that's going to change the recognition of our rights for decades.
Yeah. We had a comment yesterday that Biden, and this is one reason votes count, elections matter. Biden is doing a smaller version of what Trump did. He is appointing, not to the Supreme Court, but he's appointing federal judges.
Right.
I think he's appointed like 86, if I'm remembering correctly, right, judges to the federal bench so far. He gets to appoint all throughout his presidency, or whoever is
actually pulling the strings, right?
Yeah, exactly. Pulling them for him he gets to appoint judges for the next 2 years, right. And that's why elections matter. We're going to get federal judges go in these circuits that don't necessarily agree with right. our side, but we have to. I guess that the where I was going with that is that we have to work now to make sure that somebody does put constitutionalists in following
right.
January 2025. So
yeah. Boy, Oregon.
Yeah, let's talk.
If we don't have any
Oregon. I want to get them both in, so let's talk Oregon first.
Oh, really? Okay. The constitutional amendment passed just weeks ago in Oregon is a mess. And it's been appealed. Judges said, no, I won't stay it. Well, then the Attorney General says, no, we can't. If you enforce the law, I'm going to violate the Constitution because I can't fulfill its requirements this quickly. At which point the judge says, well, okay, I'll put a stay on that part. Particularly what I'm thinking about is the pistol purchase permits. And I'm going, so what's going to happen? Each county sheriff is going to make up his own mind. You haven't anticipated this and issued guidance about what to do because there's clearly no program in place to license people now to get a equivalent of a FOID card before you can buy a gun. Okay, I'm viewing this 2 ways. One, the judge is saying, well, the law is okay about the parts I want, but not okay about the others. I'm looking at it and going, every part of that law that violates constitutional muster should be sued, let's see, Thursday, 2 days from now?
Yeah.
Is that when it takes place? Yeah.
That's when the law takes effect. And I heard today on my, I was out running errands on my drive back, I heard on Fox News Radio, and this had not made it to show notes yet, that today the 30-round magazine ban is being allowed right. to go into effect in Oregon.
In Oregon, right. And I think Benitez is still sitting on that in Southern California.
Yeah.
So, wow. Talk about a circuit split. Not well, even within a circuit, there are splits.
Yes. Yes.
Now, wasn't that the 30-round mag ban? Wasn't that remanded back from the Supreme Court? Or am I getting that confused with the assault weapons ban?
I think that's the one that went back to Benitez.
Yeah, right.
And I
Well,
know,
he has both of them. I'm not sure which case. All right, that's something we'll have to. Or we've got our brilliant listeners. Okay, guys, save us. Which one is it?
Yeah, exactly. And we're still caught up on comments here. And I want to go to Ohio here quick. The Columbus City Council approved. Let's see here. Approved gun control legislation Monday by a unanimous 7-0 vote. But the measure's legality is going to be reviewed by an appeals court, as the city and state are at odds whether the state's constitution's home rule provision allows a city to set these restrictions. Go on down here. The law, as adopted by the council, would add crimes of negligent homicide and negligent assault for somebody storing or leaving a deadly weapon in one's residence in a manner in which a minor could reasonably be anticipated to gain access to it. Storing weapons in a safe, gun case, or trigger lock would be presumed to have exercised due care. Ban large capacity magazines that can hold 30 or more rounds or can be converted to accept that many rounds. And prohibit anyone from recklessly selling, lending, or giving or furnishing a firearm to any other person who is known or there's a reasonable cause to believe they can't legally possess it. Straw purchasing is already illegal by federal law.
Paul, what these politicians are really doing is harvesting the media narrative. The media narrative is that self-defense doesn't exist. If you look at the statistics on what the media reports, they distort the ratio of criminal uses of a gun to legal uses of a gun by over a factor of 1,000. That's obscene. And so politicians then can say, oh, guns are bad. I'll ban them, aren't I virtuous? They're trying to harvest votes based on propaganda. Wow. Thank goodness for SAF and the bullet.
Yes. Well, I will say thank goodness for SAF. And I want to throw in a small pitch here in that we need more members. We need you. We need everybody who owns a gun should be a lifetime member of the SAF. It's only $150 for a lifetime membership.
Right.
If you're a brand new parent, how wonderful of a gift would it be to give your child a lifetime membership to SAF? It'll cost you, average lifetime is 75 years. It's a couple bucks a year. And that child for the rest of their life can say, I'm helping to fight the fight to retain our freedoms and expand our freedoms.
Can I amplify that, Paul?
Absolutely.
Bruin gave us legal tools to win our rights back after they've been taken and abused. That costs money. If you want your rights back, show it with cash, because now we need it. We need to stack more lawyers on these problems and win our rights back while we can. Yeah,
we absolutely do, and we are involved in at last count, and I will get a better count tomorrow. And I've got to add that to my notes of things that I talked to the people upstairs about. But at last count, there were more than 40 federal lawsuits being handled by the SAF with the single purpose of protecting and expanding our Second Amendment rights. And these lawsuits cost a lot. Could get a lawsuit to the Supreme Court just in paperwork and legal fees is $1 million minimum.
Right.
We're not that big. We need help. We need you. If you can hear my voice and you're not a lifetime member, please consider becoming a lifetime member of SAF. saf.org/join is how you do that. So I think that's the end of the stories. But believe it or not, we went long. Rob, tell us about Slow Facts. Tell us about self-defense gun stories. Anything else you want to plug?
I host the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. I want to document when our neighbors did it right. I want to teach everyone, millions of new gun owners, what best practice looks like. I get to co-host the Polite Society podcast with Paul once a week. My blog is at slowfacts.wordpress.com. From there, my writing is often picked up and carried at AmmoLand Shooting Sports News.
On my side, I want to encourage everybody to please continue joining us all week long. Tomorrow's commentator is Dan Waz. Thursday, I do not remember off the top of my head. I think it's Mike Piwowarski's week to join us. No, I'm sorry, it's Matt Mallory this coming Thursday. And then Tom Walls. Friday is going to be an interesting one. Tom Walls is coming. He's going to be joined by Brooke Cheney. And we're going to be getting into the adage, competition will get you killed. We're going to look at that backwards, forwards, and sideways. If you compete, are you more likely to screw up when the balloon goes up? So we'll be talking about that. That's Friday's show. And then Saturday, I cannot wait for Saturday. Beth Alcazar, Alex Uli, and Dan Waz will be our commentators on Saturday. That is going to do it for us today. Please do come back and join us all week long. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for commenting, and we'll see you next time.